All right, guys, welcome back to the best show on this side of the internet where you have to defend takes you may or may not believe in. Defend the Take is back with Dave DuFour, and today we got Jeshua Kidd.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
Doing all right. Fitting last name because he's about to get sunned.
Oh my goodness,
Mhm.
boo.
Yes.
Well, for those of you guys who it may be your first time watching Defend the Take, this is a fun little game we have where you have to defend takes that you may or may not believe in. And today, guys, we have the Anthony Edwards edition of Defend the Take. We have three prompts about Anthony Edwards. The first one being Anthony Edwards is the best player to start your NBA franchise with for the next 5 years. The second prompt, Anthony Edwards would make the Detroit Pistons a play-in team. And the third prompt, if Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball switch teams, the Hornets would have a better record than the Timberwolves. Those are the three prompts we'll be answering today. And the way it'll work is each of you guys will get to defend one side of the argument, one side being the pro and the other side being the con. You'll get 60 seconds of uninterrupted time to talk about whatever you want, and then we will discuss. But that being said, to decide who gets which side of the argument, as always, we have a trivia question. And today's trivia question, just out of curiosity, Anthony Edwards started in the league in 2020, 2021. That was his first season in the league. Do you guys happen to know who has scored the most points since that season in the NBA?
Do we have take a turn here, or do I just say it out loud?
It's not the trivia question. I just want to know who you guys think it might be.
Who scored the most points in the league since the 2021 season?
Yes.
Jason Tatum.
Okay. Ash, what do you think?
I'm gonna say Embiid.
Tatum is second, Embiid is fourth, and first is actually Luka Doncic.
I was gonna say Luka.
Yeah.
But that being said, the actual trivia question today is how many points has Luka Doncic scored since the 2020-2021 season? And whoever gets the closest without going over will get to choose which side of the take. And Esh, since you are the guest, you get to make the first guess at this.
Man, I was hoping Dave got to go first because I have no idea. I don't even know where to start. Let's see how many seasons that been. That's 3 seasons?
Ish.
Yeah, 3-ish.
So three plus.
Dude, I don't know. I'm trying to think how many points people actually score in a season. It's a lot of points.
What do you think?
Let's say 3,500 points.
3,500. Wow, okay. Dave, what is your guess?
82 games in a season. Yes. 30 points a game. Yeah. Let's see. I would say let's say 7,200 points.
Wow. Well,
trying to get as close as I can.
Yeah.
Ash wins because he didn't go over.
I went too high.
You went too high. But you were very close, Dave.
Yeah.
It is 6,957.
Yeah, better guess.
Overestimated there, yeah.
Way to be good at math, Dave.
I mean, you gave me time to think. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, Ash, would you want to defend the pro side or the con side for all of these takes?
Give me that pro side. I'm pro Anthony Edwards.
Pro Anthony Edwards. Okay.
Man, this is gonna be so much fun for me. I never get to do the pro side is fun. I mean, I'm a natural face,
Dave gets to be a hater,
good guy, but being able to be the heel is so much fun.
This is the way I wanted. This is the way I scripted it up.
All right, the first take, guys. Anthony Edwards is the best player to start your NBA franchise with for the next 5 years. Esh, your 60 seconds begins now.
All right, listen here, buddy. Anthony Edwards is the best player to start with because look at what he's doing with the Timberwolves this year. He's led them to the #1 seed in the West. When's the last time you ever been able to say the Wolves are the #1 seed in the West? It ain't been because of Cat. It wasn't because of anybody else. Maybe KG back in the day. But Anthony Edwards is that guy. He's averaging 26.2 points per game. He's got 5 rebounds a game and almost 5 assists per game. He's shooting 46% from the field and 38.5% from the three. Like, what? On 32% usage rate, this guy is the guy. He's got Rudy Gobert looking good. He's got Cat looking like a player. And it's different than when Jimmy Butler was there because Cat was afraid of Jimmy Butler. But Cat and Anthony Edwards, they're in tandem together. And it's because of his leadership, right? He's a young player in the league. He's got the greatest upside out of his draft class. And what more can I even say than Anthony Edwards is that guy?
Okay. Dave, your 60 seconds begins now.
I mean, I actually think this season, Anthony Edwards has been a little bit disappointing. You know, I thought he was going to be an all-NBA first-team guy this year. I don't think he's been that. As a matter of fact, the guy that, to me, if you went around and asked every executive in the league, who are you choosing? Which guard, even? If you want to just, let's cut it down to just that, and we'll take out Jokic and Embiid and those guys. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be MVP this season. He was all-NBA first team last year. He is going to drag Chet Holmgren, not that he's not good, Chet's pretty good, but he's going to drag Chet Holmgren to a Rookie of the Year award. He is the best player on his team by far, and he also makes the rest of his teammates better, which means when you pair him up with other high-level players, you get a championship-level roster right away. And listen, this isn't to take away from Anthony Edwards, who I think is a good young player, but if you asked right now, every executive today, they're all taking Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the next 5 years for sure. Absolutely. I don't even need the full 60 seconds.
Okay. All right. Discuss.
That's it. There is no discussion. I hate to break it to you, but that's reality. And as much as I do think Anthony Edwards can be the best player eventually on a title team, it's early. And there's a huge amount of development that has to go to get from where Anthony Edwards is to where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is. And I just think that, you know, we're a couple years away, and it's more a matter of time than it is anything else. I do think he will eventually get there, but you're asking me the next 5 years. I mean, I think Shai's got a chance at winning a championship this year. You know, that's insane to say. So I think he's already done the all NBA first team thing at his age. He is a real MVP candidate right now. I mean, Seth Partnow did his MVP tiers halfway through the season, and he's number one on the list. And I think if you saw the straw poll that went out here recently, he's high on the list. Seems to me like Shai's the no-brainer for the next 5 years.
Well, see, SGA, as good as he is and as good as the Thunder have looked this year, the way that I let off my argument was, who was number one in the West? Oh, the Timberwolves. And it's because of Anthony Edwards, right? So he'll be an all-star this year. And you're talking all these things with SGA and the way that he takes over games, make his teammates better. I think Anthony Edwards is doing the same thing. I think teams and GMs, they want somebody that's kind of got that dog in them a little bit, right? And we've heard a little bit of comparisons with Anthony Edwards to somebody like a young Kawhi. Even on occasion, and dare I say it, like I'm not saying he's on this level, but Jordan a little bit, right? With the way that he plays defense, the way that he scores on offense, the way that he attacks every possession. So as good as SGA is and everything that you're saying, Dave, I think for me and the rest of the GMs, I think they're going to take somebody like Anthony Edwards because you know what you're going to get from him every single night.
Is Anthony Edwards actually the best player on his team, though? I mean, look, man, they've won 2/3 of the games that he's missed this season. The Thunder have lost every game that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's missed this year. I'm just saying, even on their own team, right? Yeah. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander more important, doing much more heavy lifting. I mean, you mentioned Rudy Gobert. That's a Hall of Famer. That's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, and maybe even this year, by the way, because he looks so good. Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, that's a huge big three, in my opinion. And that's not even mentioning that they've got Jaden McDaniels out there, who's another lockdown defender that makes Anthony Edwards' job even easier. So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's just got it. The degree of difficulty is just much more high for him in OKC. It's a greater lift. He's got less talent around him, although I do think in a couple years that equation evens out. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Shai, when you look at what he's done against the highest level competition in the league, hands down to me, I would take him. And no bit there. I mean, I think that guy is probably it's him and Luka right now are the two best guards in the league to me.
Well, Anthony
now we're just waiting on Sam. Sam to tell me I got the point.
I got a question for you, Dave.
Yes.
Is Anthony Edwards' potential at his peak higher, lower, or the same as SGA's potential at his peak?
This is where I was going next.
That's a great question. I mean, I would say SGA is just coming into his prime, right? We don't know what his peak's going to be yet. I don't think this is his peak. He's still got, you think about the basketball learning curve and how the IQ continues to escalate, especially for guys like Shea, who's going to get rep after rep after rep making decisions. And once we get into playoffs, and he's got a lot of growing to do. But I think Anthony Edwards physically is as gifted as any player to ever play in the NBA. I mean, the Michael Jordan comps that I love to make are, I think, apt. I mean, I think they fit. Physically, they fit. Mentality, they kind of fit. Style of game fits. But he has so much farther to go to hit this theoretical peak that I would just bet against it, because historically, guys don't really do that. There's only 20 top 20 players in NBA history, right? So you've got to replace a guy. And I think it's hard to bridge that gap. Can he go from all-star to all-NBA? Absolutely. I think he maybe has a shot this year squeaking into all-NBA. He's not knocking the door down this year like I expected him to. But there's no world in which he isn't a perennial all-NBA guy. But getting from all-NBA to MVP is a whole different leap. And then from MVP candidate to winning MVP is a whole nother leap. I mean, remember Giannis? I actually thought Giannis should have won Most Improved the year that he won his first MVP. I think that would have been a perfect use of that award. But I think you almost need a leap like that out of Anthony Edwards, where it's just he becomes so undeniable. We're watching Shea take that leap right now. I mean, this is just, we are watching it happen right before us. We could say that about Luka, but Luka's been sort of doing this, since he got in the league. But with Shea, we're watching him take that MVP leap. I mean, I think, again, he's going to win the MVP this year, barring injury or the Thunder really running into some tough luck. So I would take the bird in the hand over the two in the bush, if that makes sense. Because I do think Anthony Edwards, he's got every single thing, and Esh, back me up on this. He's got everything you would want in a guy who's going to be a top 5 player. Now we just need to see it.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, and I think with SGA, the Thunder, just where the Timberwolves were last year and then where the Thunder were last year, I think that's kind of where SGA kind of gets this push right now, is because where he took his leap and the team themselves have leaped up into this conversation, and they look so much better. As where the Timberwolves, of course, they are better than they were last year and the years prior to that as well. But it's not as I guess a marginal leap as it is with the Thunder. So it may be harder to see what Anthony Edwards is bringing to the table as far as what SGA is, because every single night you watch the Thunder, you're seeing exactly what SGA is doing. You're seeing like how far they've come. They got their team together. They got Chet, who's finally playing, who wasn't playing last year. And then last year for the Timberwolves, for example, like Anthony Edwards was doing similar numbers, right? He's a little bit better, shooting the ball a little bit better this year, averaging a couple more points, a couple more assists, stuff like that. But last year they didn't have Cat for a big chunk of the season. So we got to see a little bit more of Anthony Edwards. So now they have more of a full team. You're seeing a little bit more distribution between their big three, if you will. And it's a little bit harder maybe to tell what you're getting from Anthony Edwards as when you're looking at SGA.
Sure. Well, and also let's not forget that the MVP is a narrative award. I mean, right. It 100%.
Exactly my point.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander defying expectations with his team because he was all NBA first team last season. This is what I'm saying. This is a continuation of a leap for Shai. Mm-hmm. And him taking a team, I mean, remember, they weren't bad last year. Let's not forget this. He took them to the play-in last year. So this is sort of the incremental progress that we're watching from Shai. And there definitely are people who are going to give him the MVP nod for the leap of the team, but it's warranted. Mm-hmm. It is warranted. They are not, when you look at the talent, they don't have the talent that Minnesota has. They just don't. They have the theoretical talent. They have the prospects, the guys who could grow into these guys. They don't have anybody as good as Karl Anthony Towns. They don't have anybody as good as Rudy Gobert. They just don't. Those guys are not there yet. And I think that when you see what he's doing, neck and neck with Minnesota in the West, a team that has a much better roster. And I think, we we may see the difference in these two rosters come playoff time, good or bad. We're going to see what happens because they are, man, this is a fascinating conversation actually to have another time. But I just think we're watching Shea take a leap that Anthony Edwards hasn't begun yet. He hasn't taken the first step.
Okay.
Considering Anthony Edwards is actually not in the MVP talks right now, I'm going to give Dave the point.
Now, that's not your fault, Esh. That's not you can't help the media narrative on your own, Esh. I've been setting this narrative all week. It's been Shea Gilgeous-Alexander week at The Athletic.
Trust me, I get it.
It's okay. You get a chance in the second prompt. Prompt number 2. Anthony Edwards would make the Pistons a play-in team. Ash, 60 seconds starts now.
First of all, I think I would make the Pistons a better team than they are right now. Because you know why? They need shooting. They need somebody else to handle the ball. They need somebody else to spread the floor. And I think Anthony Edwards could do that. Like I mentioned earlier, his three-point shooting is up. He's shooting 38% from the three-point line, 38.5%, almost 39%. That's pretty good. And so with Cade, everybody's talking about his like almost historically bad, what is it, PER, but he's also doing really well in every other aspect of the game, but just doesn't have anybody to pass the ball to, doesn't have anybody to help him out. So Anthony Edwards goes to that team. Of course, they're going to pick up more wins. Can they make it to the play-in tournament? Well, it's the East, so that's also a possibility. Both of those guys getting in, dropping numbers. I'm sure his PPG will go up going over there. All his numbers will go up going to the Pistons because they're the Pistons. So Anthony Edwards to the Pistons, could they be a play-in team? Of course. They can make it to the 10th and 19th seed from the 3-34 record they got right now.
Time. All right, Dave, go for it.
Have you guys ever looked at the Detroit Pistons roster? It's a tragedy. So if you add Anthony Edwards to this team, that means you have Anthony Edwards, you have Cade Cunningham, you have Asar Thompson, and that's it. Still got the same coach. I mean, that's one of the bigger problems for this team. So I think that, sure, adding Anthony Edwards, that gives you 3 NBA players, and that's important. And that gives you, I mean, he would be the best player on that team. Slides Cade down to what I think is more of a natural role for him, which would be, someone's Robin to Anthony Edwards' Batman. But you still have to field a roster, and James Wiseman's not going to cut it. I'm sorry. I'm not convinced that even with Anthony Edwards on the roster, Killian Hayes wouldn't get some starts here and there. They have systemic problems. This is not something that you're going to be able to paper over with one player. And so...
Time. I want to start this off with a specific question.
Yes.
Currently, the teams ahead of them, the teams they would have to jump in order to get into the play-in are the Nets, Raptors, Hawks, Hornets, Wizards. Which of those teams are they jumping, and which of those teams are they not jumping?
Well, I mean, they definitely would. Wizards and Hornets for sure. They would definitely be better than them just by having Anthony Edwards on the court, period. Mm-hmm. Right? Like that I'll give them that. The issue comes to the other teams. I mean, the other teams have full rosters of NBA players.
You don't think they're jumping the Hawks?
No, man, the Hawks are still tough to beat. Like they still have a roster of NBA players. And you need more than 3 people who know how to play basketball. It just is what it is. DeJounte Murray, like if you put DeJounte Murray in Detroit, he would maybe be their best player right now. And so this is what I'm saying. Like, how many games would the Pistons play where they had, I don't know, 3 of the best 5 guys in the game? Not that many. And when you consider the way individual players are leveraged on a basketball court, one player has an outsized effect on everything else, good and bad. And Detroit they've got too many guys that can get picked on defensively. They've got too many guys that you just don't have to guard on offense. And Anthony Edwards, look, man, his usage would go up for sure. He would shoot the ball more. He would have to because they don't have anyone else to do it. But man, I bet those percentages go down because there's no way he's open ever. I don't care who's passing him the ball. I don't care who's setting screens for him. There's no way he's ever open. So I think you run into some just serious struggles once you get into the Atlanta range, because Atlanta is that play-in range. That's a competitive basketball team. They're not good, but they're not awful. They're not falling apart at the seams like those other ones.
Ash, what do
We
you think
are.
as the Georgia native?
Well, first of all, being from Georgia,
They
I
are.
I I never I never have any faith in any of our teams,
This
much
man
less
was
the Hawks.
wearing an Atlanta Hawks beanie yesterday. I'll just have everyone know this.
You want to know why, Dave? Because it was cold in my house, and that's the only beanie I got right now. That one and the Celtics one. All right. Now they are just 14 games behind the Bulls, who are in what, the ninth seed? Yes, the ninth seed. Okay. 14 games right now. They could go on a mean streak with Anthony Edwards. You're saying, well, who else is shooting besides who'd you name? You said Cade, Osor, and Anthony Edwards, right?
That's
What
it.
about Bogdanovich? Bogdanovich is there. He's shooting the ball. All right. Now, sure, they got some other holes, but if we really want to get all technical, there's got to be some ways to get Anthony Edwards over there. Who's moving in the trade? Blah blah blah. Right. So let's just theoretically put our best five out there. I know that four are the ones we just named. That fifth guy might not matter that much. But the floor is going to be a little bit more spread, especially with Bogdanovich out there. Now, they're going to jump the Hornets. They can jump the Wizards. Those are 100% locks, okay? Do we have faith in the Nets? We don't know what the Nets are doing. Like, they've been a little sluggish here recently.
Hey, ever since they rested Spencer Dinwiddie, it's been all downhill. They're in Paris. By the way, can we just, for a second, the lovely people of Paris, they send us, the Statue of Liberty. We send them the Brooklyn Nets. What are we doing?
What are we doing? What are they doing? Which is kind of my point.
But yes, Brooklyn, I understand. But Brooklyn has competence at every single position. At every position. And,
I get it.
Detroit, you just don't. You don't have five guys, and you got to have at least five.
Listen, like I said, we're jumping the Wizards. We're jumping the Hornets. The Hawks, nobody trusts because Trae Young is having a good season, and it's being just overlooked because the Hawks are so bad. I don't know what's going on,
man.
Exactly, like this is the best Trae Young has looked in a long time, really, maybe ever, and nobody cares because it's the Hawks. And I'm down at State Farm Arena looking at a lot of these games. I see Bogdanovich getting hot. Jalen Johnson looks okay, but I don't know what the problem is. They can't figure it out. The Raptors are up and down, but they'll probably be in the play-in picture. Like I said, the Nets. And then there's the Bulls, right? We all know how the Bulls are too. We don't trust them. We don't trust anything that they're doing. Ask Trey Kirby of No Dunks. He'll tell you. We don't know what the Bulls are going to do. So do I have faith that Anthony Edwards could turn this team around and go on some kind of a win streak where they go out of 25 games, they win 14 of them, and the rest of those teams are going to keep a pace like that? I don't think so. None of those teams are. So then they're
beat
right
Minnesota
back in it.
this year. I'm just going to put that out there. Okay.
Like you said,
Atlanta is not a bad basketball team.
They're not a bad basketball team.
Right.
But they're a bad basketball
That's all
team.
I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, no, they're not a good one, but they're not a bad one.
They have
can
a lot
win
of good
games.
players,
but
they are not a good team.
Normal basketball players.
They have good basketball NBA caliber players.
That's right.
But they do not have a good NBA basketball team.
No.
Dave, I have a question for you, Dave.
All right.
Is there anyone in the league that could turn this team into a playing team? A singular player?
Yeah, I mean, Nikola Jokic. And Giannis. Giannis could do it.
How many players?
Has to be. It's like 3 or 4 guys, but this is the thing that, like we were talking about with Shea, right? Like, I don't know if Shea's one of those guys yet. Like, Luka's not one of those guys yet to me either. And I would still put him in he's in that, he's going to be on that level, but he's not one of those dudes yet. Jokic is. I think Embiid maybe gets him into the playoffs. Like, he's just such a monster. And if you really just fed him the ball and he could stay healthy. Giannis, I do think that there's a little bit of you need a big that can do more stuff because it's a harder position to find. But if you put Jokic is in the East. Jokic maybe gets you home court by himself. I don't know, man. Because Jokic is beating Atlanta alone. Anthony Edwards is not. I love Anthony Edwards as a player, but he's not Nikola Jokic. He's not Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's just not yet.
I don't know. I was at the Hawks Nuggets game this year, and Jokic didn't beat him by himself. I'm just saying he had a lot of help from Jamal Murray and Strother. A lot of help. Anyways,
but he beat. They did win that game, right?
They did win the game. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, something Anthony Edwards did not do this season.
Look, I'm just saying.
I'm just telling you that Anthony Edwards has not beaten the Hawks yet this year. That's all. I'm just
Look,
all I do is report the facts here, guys.
I'm also saying that the Pistons have more NBA caliber players than I think you're giving them credit for. Like, we got Joe Harris. He's a good shooter. Isaiah Stewart has been fine in this league. Does he play? That ain't on me. That's on coach. All right. I'm just saying that
I like Beef Stew. I think Beef Stew is a good player.
Okay.
They've got 3 guys. 4 guys because I like Boyan too.
There you go.
Dave, I'm gonna give you a point because purely because I want the Pistons to be bad. And so you get a point there. But I am gonna take away a point also because I don't think there's a world where if you put Anthony Edwards on this team, they don't at least pass the Hawks.
I just don't think they'd be as good. I don't think they'd be as good. Need somebody with 2K to just make this happen.
But anyways, that's a net zero for you, Dave. Net zero for you, and Ash is still at 0.
See, that's crazy. I didn't get that one. That's crazy.
No, Ash, it's crazy that I got it and then had to take it away.
This isn't about you, Dave. This isn't about you. I'm trying to put points on the board.
This is like losing a game winner on a review.
Well, Ash, you get one more chance to put points on the board. The third and final prompt. If Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball switch teams, the Charlotte Hornets would have a better record than the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Well, Dave kind of alluded to it right before we got to this one. He said it by accident. I don't think he realized it, but he kind of was talking about how the Hornets are if Anthony Edwards was on that team. And yeah, they would have a pretty great record, I would go out and say. Why? Well, he plays more than LaMelo Ball. LaMelo is out a lot. That ankle is giving him trouble. He's like a young Steph Curry right now. Anthony Edwards just come out there. He's going to give you buckets. Their team, they're a decent bunch of team, you know what I'm saying? But when you don't have your star guy out there, like right now they're missing LaMelo, like I said. He's been out for a while. Who's putting the pieces together? If you don't have your superstar guy to be in the middle to glue you together, who's doing it for you? Anthony Edwards out there, once again, his numbers will go up. He's going to wield into some wins in the East, and they're just going to be better. Now, would they have a better record than the Timberwolves? I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say, yeah, because they're going to be putting on highlights all the time. Their defense is going to step up.
Dave, your 60 seconds begins now.
Look, man, LaMelo Ball, you're right. He's been injured. But magically, though, in Minnesota, he would never be injured. And he would also be playing with the best roster he's ever played with. And I mean, like, in any point in his basketball career, high school, college, Lithuania, Australia, Charlotte, it doesn't matter. He'd be playing with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. His defense all of a sudden doesn't matter. His three-pointer becomes more open because there's other players. Imagine LaMelo and Karl Anthony Towns running spread pick and roll, and LaMelo with his amazing passing having options to throw the ball to. And Anthony Edwards would run into a similar problem that he would run into in Detroit. Who's he playing with? Who do you like on that team? Tell me. Who's he playing with? I'm letting you interrupt me.
Gordon Hayward.
Yeah.
There's a guy on the team that we can't talk about. We don't talk about.
No way. Listen, man, that team would be awful. That team would be so bad. And it's not because of Anthony Edwards, because that team sucks. It's Detroit South.
Dave, you're getting docked a point. Dave,
I'm getting docked a point for asking you to interrupt.
No, that's not why. You're getting docked a point because that was an absolutely crazy wrong statement that you just said. That this would be the best team that he would play with.
LaMelo?
His high school Chino Hills team was by far the best roster.
How many of those guys are in the NBA?
I'm just talking relative to high school.
He's playing with like two great NBA players.
I'm just saying relative to high school, that team was legendary, and we will not disrespect that team like that.
Did they win a
They did. With all three brothers, they won. They won one chip with all three brothers. And so
All right, well, I'll stand corrected on that one. I'll give it up to Chino Hills.
Okay,
That
keep
being
going.
said, this is the best roster he's played on since Chino Hills. I mean, look, man, his defense is god awful, and LaMelo, I mean, he's just not there. But Rudy Gobert and Jaden McDaniels just erases that. It doesn't matter anymore. And I just, man, to be able to see a guy that gifted as a passer and willing, because this is one of the things about LaMelo that I love. Seems like he has more fun when his teammates are having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And those sorts of guys, and you think about like Rudy Gobert and how he can sometimes be a little down, and Karl Anthony Towns can sometimes be a little down. You could see where like a little bit of a goofball like LaMelo, who also brings people together on the court, that could galvanize them quite a bit. Like they could actually have some really good chemistry. So I just think, again, man, Minnesota's just, it's a good damn team. And if you took Anthony Edwards off, they're worse for sure with LaMelo, because I think Anthony Edwards is better. But the Charlotte Hornets are so bad. One guy can't do it.
I don't know. I just feel like we've seen this before. Like Anthony Edwards, he leaves the Timberwolves, then who's the number one option there? And don't say it's LaMelo, because he's passing the ball. And he's, he might be getting some shots up, but he's really looking to distribute, right?
It probably is Karl Anthony Towns.
Okay, so it goes back to Cat,
the most prolific shooting big man in NBA history. I mean, I don't know about you, but that's not too bad.
Of course, but we've seen it before, right? Like Jimmy Butler left there, and then like what was the team really, right? Like, yes, the team is different now. They have different players, but the construct of the team is pretty much the same. Even the fact, like, now they got Rudy Gobert, but once again, he's not scoring. So everything falls back to, hey, Cat, you're the number one guy. But that's kind of the point of the reason that they drafted Anthony Edwards, to come in and kind of be the guy. And now he's number one with a bullet, and Cat can be your number two because that's where he's more comfortable. So when Anthony Edwards goes to Charlotte, right, he's taking all of that he's doing for the Timberwolves, and he's raising them up. And
maybe instead of
Timberwolves falter, maybe the Timberwolves falter because Cat doesn't want to be the number one option. But over in Charlotte, up in North Carolina, a little north from where I'm at right now, Anthony Edwards is like, I'm gonna put this team on my back. Yeah. He's got some athletes over there. He's gonna
be passing the ball instead of Karl Anthony Towns. He's gonna be passing the ball to PJ Washington.
Hey, PJ, they're not bad players though. That's amazing. What I'm saying. They're gonna turn into what the Pacers are this year. Not playing defense, but they're putting up numbers. Well, you
got to have some people who can score. I think Minnesota is just such a better roster. I mean, we haven't even talked about Mike Conley. Mike Conley and LaMelo next to each other would be kind of fascinating, man. Like, you'd have some really tremendous high level point guard play. That kind of like that. I don't like that trade for Minnesota because Anthony Edwards is Anthony Edwards, but man, I like Conley and LaMelo together all of a sudden. It's pretty good.
Fun.
I got a quick question. So 2021, 2022 season. So just a couple years ago, that Hornets team finished with 43 wins.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest parts of that roster are still on that roster. Would Anthony Edwards make this current team then at least the 43 win team if given like a full 82 game season?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Yeah. Why not?
They're just not good enough. They won 43 games 2 years ago. What was happening 2 years ago? Wasn't that the season that we had like a couple of weeks around Christmas where a bunch of teams were missing players? Like, wasn't that the big COVID season? Like, where we had a lot of missed games? That's a weird season, 2021.
Okay. So
I'm just saying it's a weird season. Like, you got a 43. It
could have been a weird season. We might not have played. We only played 72 games in that season. I get it, but why wouldn't he make them better? Like, just because you're saying that he averages more assists than LaMelo Ball, because I think he's gonna score more efficiently.
Oh, Anthony Edwards. Well, I mean, here's the thing about scoring on the Charlotte Hornets, man. The way basketball works, it's geometry. And you know the term gravity, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Edwards, if this is Anthony Edwards and he has 0 people to pass the ball to, this is what the defense is going to do. And you just don't score as much when you're playing with bad players, not efficiently. He could take 25 shots a night and he could have a Kobe season and average 35 a game, and they are going to stink. that's how it works when you just don't have a roster. I mean, I feel like a broken record because I'm saying the same stuff about Charlotte that I said about Detroit, but I can say the same thing about the Wizards. Only the Wizards at least have Kyle Kuzma.
I mean, I feel like they got more players than
look,
Detroit.
This is going to get sad fast for a few fan bases. I don't know that anyone actually roots for the Hornets, but I mean, it's not good there. They just continue to make mistake after mistake, and that roster stinks. So you would need, I think you need Anthony Edwards, and you would need like one more guy.
I got one
or just question. Nikola Jokic.
One final question before we
Jokic
call
can't
this.
be everywhere.
Just for fun, what would be the team that you would want to see LaMelo Ball play for the most? Where you're like, oh, this would be fun to watch.
LaMelo.
I mean, can I put him in Denver? Guys like LaMelo, I always want to see him play with other high-level passer playmaker guys. Like if you could make a team and it was LaMelo and Jokic and I mean Luka, I don't put Luka with those guys because Luka just likes to dominate the ball more. But then if you had just LaMelo and Jokic and you somehow had Alex Caruso, a guy who knows how to move and cut and pass the ball, and Draymond Green, I could make a team out of these guys.
How would he fit in Golden State?
I mean, LaMelo in Golden State, this was one of their mistakes. I mean, I was making the argument that with the number 2 overall pick, they should have tried to trade down and get Halliburton and Desmond Bane. In hindsight, I look like a genius. During the moment, I was like, hey, I'd just take Bane number 2. I would take Halliburton number 2, and I would just be happy. People were like, oh, I can't believe you trade value or, draft equity. Like I care. I only care about a basketball team, man. And they would have been way better with those guys. But LaMelo with them, it's the same thing. High IQ player. And also you wonder, what does his maturity look like if he's on that team in that group? And with as good as he is, and I've never really heard anything bad about him, like as far as out of the locker room. What if you had his personality with them? And now all of a sudden you have a real 2 timelines because you have LaMelo, who's 6'7" and can play make and can shoot and would maybe defend for the Warriors in a way that he doesn't and can't in Charlotte because his responsibilities are different. I mean, I don't get into theoreticals and hypotheticals all that often, for work, more here than anywhere else. But that is one that does fascinate me because I just think LaMelo is one of the smarter players that I've ever scouted as a draft prospect for sure. I just love how I don't know, man, like he feeds off everybody else touching the ball and doing stuff. And then when he gets going, you can see like the team is into it. I just think that kind of energy is so infectious. So he would have been great in Golden State. Long story short, I've thought about that one a lot because they could have had him.
Yeah, I actually like that one too. That's a pretty good one. The other 2 that come to mind just randomly. One, the Suns, kind of actually, just so you don't have to have point guard Devin Booker and like slide him over. And I know they got Bradley Beal, and you're like, what are you doing? Just kind of like 3-guard lineup. But I don't know. For some reason, I feel like it would work. Him being more distributed into KD, Book, Bill, and kind of taking more of a back seat. And then he's the point guard Draymond of that group, rather than just coming out here trying to get 30 and 12 assists. And then the other one, which I think be kind of fascinating, is the Pacers too, right? Like Halliburton doing the same thing
you hate
it's just Chino Hills.
You just hate defense. No, actually, and he would work in Orlando.
I thought about that one too.
I just didn't think it was as spicy. His willingness to like launch from 30 would actually open up a lot for them. Obviously, the playmaking and the ball handling. The fact that he's 6'7", I mean, he's so long, he fits with their vision down there. He might be the perfect point guard for the Magic, to be honest with you. He would work with Trae Young really well if Trae would play with them, right? You could see like those 2 offensively could be extremely dynamic with like guard-to-guard screens and things like that. I mean, LaMelo is a fascinating player. If he can be healthy, would love to see what he's going to turn into. He's super unique.
All right. Ash, I'm going to give you a point because you are correct. LaMelo, who knows if he'll get on the court. if he plays for the Timberwolves. But I don't think
Uh,
I don't think that this Hornets team would be better than the Timberwolves. And so Dave gets the final point and he wins by a score of 2-1.
boo.
What's that record now?
Thank you guys for listening. Let us know who was correct and who was wrong. Dave is always wrong as always. But yeah.